Granada, Nicaragua, is one of the oldest colonial cities in America, founded in 1524 by Spanish conquistador Francisco Hernández de Córdoba. Lying at the foot of the majestic Mombacho volcano, this city has been ransacked by French, Dutch, and English pirates, leveled and burnt to the ground by the American filibuster William Walker, and still it has managed to survive and retain its beauty to this day. Granada is perhaps the most picturesque city of Nicaragua, and though it might not seem so at first sight, in the 16th century it was considered the door to the Caribbean. In 1539, two captains of the Spanish crown, Alonso Calero and Diego Machuca, set off from Granada on an expedition across the Great Lake of Nicaragua, which is the 10th largest lake in the world, measuring 8,200 square kilometers. Their mission was fueled by rumors that there was a passage that linked the Atlantic Ocean with the Pacific, and that whoever controlled it would control the world. King Charles V of Spain ordered all his men to seek for what was then known as the Dubious Passage. With 130 men aboard two big ships, Calero and Machuca set off from Granada on March 6th. 80 days later, on the 24th of June, the day of St. John, only 9 survivors managed to reach the delta of the river, which they named Rio San Juan. Since the discovery of this passage until the Panama Canal was built, Nicaragua was thought to be the ideal place to make a crossing from the Atlantic to the Pacific, and this fact has marked Nicaragua's history forever. Having sailed this lake myself during many years, I thought I would recreate this adventure and see if my small craft could sail across the lake and down the San Juan River to the Caribbean, like the explorers did before me 5 centuries ago. To replicate this historical expedition, I recruited friends and managed to put together an international crew. Andrés Baico, though originally from Argentina, is an old childhood friend of mine from Mallorca. He is a yacht captain with over 35 years of sailing experience in the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. Claudia Daquil is from Peru and also works on boats in Mallorca. They both flew over from Spain to help us sail our yacht, Pirate Lorraine, and to discover Nicaragua for themselves. Denis Mora, my friend born in Granada, knows this lake like no one else. He's a great fisherman and also a great sailor. Last but not least, Ernesto Piñero, the Cuban cameraman, whom I have worked with for many years and who knows most of Nicaragua, but had never been down the San Juan River. On November 15th of 2003, we set sail from the little port of Acese in Granada, following the Spanish captain's wake. Looming above us is the Mombacho volcano, a silent witness to our journey. The day is sunny, the wind is good, and the lake is calm. A few hours after casting off, however, the wind rose to force 6, and we got some rain. Though this lake looks placid, it can get quite rough and choppy. Not a lake to be taken lightly. Our first stop was on Isla Redonda, a little island with only 4 inhabitants, who greeted us warmly and sheltered and fed us. After a good night's rest on dry land, we continued to Dead Man's Island, where Denis's father lives, with his family, the only people on the island.
Hay una historia en esta isla y una punta que le llaman La Pelona allá. Hace, digamos, no sé en qué tiempo, en qué año, cuando los sanfranciscanos en Nicaragua, supuestamente dicen que hubieron unas masacres aquí.
Lake Cocibolca, as it is known, represents about 0.3% of what the world consumes in a year, and it dumps 6 million gallons of fresh water per minute through the San Juan River. Many countries would love to have such an abundant water supply. Here, however, most people ignore it and keep polluting it. As the world's fresh water supplies dwindle, here most people just take this treasure for granted. We continued to Puerto Diaz, where we were met by a multitude that received us with much song and dance. Here they still use old sailboats to transport bananas and watermelons from the island of Ometepe, which is the biggest freshwater island in the world and renowned as an important archaeological site. With its twin volcanoes, it is said that this was a magical place for the Inca Indians and the Aztecs alike. The potential for tourism here is enormous, and I never cease to be amazed that in such a beautiful lake as this one, we are practically the only ones sailing here. Following Calero and Machuca's route, we set off from Point Mayales, where, according to the historians, they met with strong headwinds that forced them back to Puerto Diaz. We arrived to Point Mayales and set anchor in the little community called Cañas Gordas. That night, all 5 of us slept on board. Considering that Pirate Lorraine is only a 21-footer and loaded down with provisions, that is no small feat. Everyone's sense of humor and tolerance is put to test. We continue towards Solentiname, and on the way we throw some bait to see if we can catch or see the elusive freshwater sharks that are said to inhabit the lake and the river. While we were waiting for a shark to bite, Denis fished some bass and prepared lunch. Andres, a seasoned regatta sailor, tries to get the most out of the wind and confides the secret to us little by little. Claudia and Ernesto surprise us with their musical abilities. Everyone seems to know what they should be doing on board, and the only one at a loss here is me. So I guess I should settle down and write the log and keep out of the way. In the 50s and the 60s, it was thought that the freshwater shark in this lake were a unique species. The Nicaraguan government made a stamp with a shark on it, and the American biologist Dr. Thomas B. Thorson spotted it and took immediate interest. Dr. Thorson moved to Granada, and for many years, with his colleague, the Jesuit father Ignacio Astorsky, he studied these sharks. When Guillermo Arguello was young, he and his uncle helped Dr. Thorson catch and tag these sharks.
Una de las cosas que ellos lograron, el padre Astorque y el doctor Thorson, que lograron descifrar era la cantidad de tiburones que había en el lago. Y ellos una vez me acuerdo que nos dijeron a nosotros de que en 1968-69 habían más tiburones en el lago que habitantes en Nicaragua. En esa época habían 2 millones de habitantes más o menos en Nicaragua. O sea que habían más de 2 millones de tiburones en el lago. La teoría que decía el padre Astorque y el doctor Thorson era que los tiburones entraban del Atlántico al lago por el río San Juan. Entonces el doctor Thorson y el padre Astorque comenzaron a hacer estudios y compraron un barco camaronero, sacaban los tiburones, los sacaban, lo pesaban y le ponían una marca plástica en la aleta dorsal y luego lo metían al agua de nuevo. Esa aleta dorsal tenía unas características especiales porque decía el lugar donde había sido pescado el tiburón, el peso, si era hembra, si era macho, y una dirección en Nicaragua para reportarlo. Pero el susto mayor de ellos y la alegría fue cuando recibieron una plaqueta, una comunicación de México, donde un tipo decía que él había sacado en el Golfo de México un tiburón con una plaqueta que se había puesto en el lago de Nicaragua. Entonces ahí ya terminó totalmente la teoría anterior del señor Erik y se cumplió la teoría que ellos estaban reafirmando, pues.
Today we know that the Nicaraguan lake shark is in fact the bull shark. The idea of finding a shark in these waters obsesses us, and we try everything from special bait, fishermen's tricks, buoys, prayers, even blasphemy in order to catch one, but nothing seems to work. I'm beginning to think that the freshwater shark is just a figment of the imagination. At 4 o'clock we arrive in the island of Macarron, the biggest of the Solentiname archipelago. Here in Solentiname, people still fish gar, a prehistorical fish that looks more like a crocodile.
Para agarrar ese pescado tenemos que movernos de la isla. Tenemos que ir a la costa sur, al frente, pues digamos de Solentiname.
¿Cuántos gaspares agarraste anoche?
Anoche agarramos 12.
¿Y en este lago has visto tiburones o pez sierra?
Tiburones y pez sierra, ¿viste? Sí. Aquí en esta isla mira un tiburón.
¿Hace cuánto?
Hace como 5 años. Sí. Y pez sierra el año pasado uno.
Si te preguntan a vos, ¿hay tiburones en el lago, sí o no? ¿Qué dirías?
Claro que hay. Sí. Hay tiburones en el lago.
This community was founded by the poet and revolutionary priest Ernesto Cardenal back in the 60s. It is well known for its artisans, painters, and their unique primitivist style. Father Ernesto Cardenal receives us in his little wooden house, where he spends long periods meditating and writing. One of his books and poems inspired me to do this journey.
Pues me lo inspiró José Coronel Urtecho, porque en su finca del río San Juan me empezó a hablar de que se debía de escribir un poema épico sobre el descubrimiento y conquista de Centroamérica, porque había muchos personajes aquí muy importantes. Habíamos tenido a Fray Bartolomé de las Casas, Colón primero, el primero que vino, pues, y antes pues los indios, las culturas indígenas, también Hernán Cortés, que estuvo buscando el estrecho dudoso, o sea, el paso de un mar al otro en Honduras, y Gil González Dávila, que fue el descubridor del lago. Entonces yo hice ese poema épico con todos esos personajes, indios y españoles. Me ha interesado muchísimo la aventura que ustedes han hecho, y para mí ha sido realmente muy agradable que se repita aquel primer viaje que fue el descubrimiento del río San Juan, y también el descubrimiento de Solentiname, porque pasaron por aquí.
After a few days in Solentiname, we set sail for San Carlos, the beginning of the San Juan River. During 9 days, we have sailed the lake. Now we will start our journey down the majestic San Juan River, the most complicated part of the adventure, the Dubious Passage. News of our adventure has traveled fast.
Amarrachele.
No one has ever heard of a sailboat going down this river, crossing the rapids to get to the Caribbean. Let's hope we can. On our way down from San Carlos to El Castillo, we pass a few tourist resorts. One of them is Sábalos Lodge, where we put up for the night, and the next morning we go on an amphibian and reptilian safari. In a 5-minute walk, you get to see more species than you could ever imagine. This beautiful little frog is extremely poisonous, not to mention the coral snakes or the tarantulas. Finally, we get to El Castillo, a historical place of great beauty, and where the first dangerous rapid is. The rapid is still called the Devil's House. This castle, known as the Castle of Immaculate Conception, was built between 1673 and 1675 by the Spaniards in order to defend Granada from pirates such as Henry Morgan, who sacked the city in 1656, and others before him, such as Gallardito and Jean David. Another famous battle that this castle witnessed is that of Lord Nelson. In 1870, he took El Castillo by storm and won the siege against the Spaniards, but a few days later, malaria and dysentery defeated the English, and in the end they lost the battle. But now it's our turn to go down these rapids. With the help of the Nicaraguan army, we managed to cross the first rapid. Without them, we probably would have smashed our boat against the rocks. almost home free. Only 4 more rapids left between us and the Caribbean. The next rapid bears the explorer's name, the Machuca Rapid. It is very strong, but fortunately, it's also very deep. We keep looking for sharks. We talk to fishermen, and they all say that they used to fish sharks all the time, but that there are less of them now.
Él agarraba entre 10 y 15 tiburones diarios, solo para quitarle las aletas.
Uno tiraba la línea aquí, lanzaba la línea ahí, en un masito el tiburón agarraba la línea.
Y eso casi lo hacíamos 2 o 3 veces por semana. Matamos en la semana hasta 15 a 20 tiburones.
Agarré un tiburón que solo en las aletas pesó 12 kilos.
On our way, we chanced to meet Elda Brizuela, who has been working on a project partly funded by National Geographic, which is called Free Passage. Elda hopes to make San Juan River a free passage for sharks and stop the fishermen putting nets and fishing them at the mouth of the river. She and her team have studied the bull shark extensively and have tried to tag a few, as did Dr. Thorson in his time. We were lucky to see her catch one. She also hopes that this initiative will also help improve relations between Nicaragua and Costa Rica, which are always tense when it comes to the point of sovereignty of the San Juan River.
La frontera entre Costa Rica y Nicaragua es un pasaje natural que permite la migración de especies como el tiburón y el pez sierra entre el mar Caribe y el lago Cocibolca. Entonces, pensando en que esto es un canal que permite el pasaje libre de especies como estas, esa fue la motivación por la cual desarrollamos este proyecto.
Finally, we arrive at Greytown. This is the place where it rains most in the world. The rain here is not measured by inches, but by meters. On average, it rains 9 meters a year. This ghost town was once the epicenter of Nicaragua. During the gold rush in 1849, over 50,000 people passed through this town. This route became known as the Nicaragua Transit Route, and people like Cornelius Vanderbilt made his fortune here.
Welcome to Greytown.
And right here began one of Nicaragua's greatest projects, a project that could have changed the country completely, but didn't. The canal that never was. Though the idea of a canal through Nicaragua started with Philip II of Spain, way back in the 1500s, the idea never took hold until France, England, and the US started making maps in the late 1800s. In 1890, the American John Tyler Morgan began constructing the canal through Nicaragua. The French started doing the same thing through Panama. Both projects ran into financial and political difficulties at first, but in 1901, under the presidency of Theodore Roosevelt, the project of building a canal through Nicaragua took off again. However, the French kept trying to sell their project through Panama, and here was born one of the greatest lobbying stories in the world. On the day the U.S. Congress had to decide where the canal should be built, whether Panama or Nicaragua, a huge map of Central America appeared in the visitors' gallery, with red dots indicating volcanoes. It was obvious that Nicaragua had many and Panama none. Furthermore, every congressman received a Nicaragua stamp depicting the Momotombo volcano throwing smoke. The message was obvious. Nicaragua is geologically unstable. Don't build a canal there. And the scare tactic worked, and the canal was built in Panama. The dream of a canal still goes on, but right now there are 3 different projects in the pipeline. The most feasible one is the Eco Canal. Though much more modest than the original one, it might still happen. This project is headed by Tim Kuhn, who has been at it for over 15 years.
Sí, quizás no muy factible por el costo de construcción, el costo de tarifa, el peaje que hay que cargar. Entonces, decidí que sería más factible un proyecto más chiquito para abrir la navegación del lago de Nicaragua con el Caribe y pensar en diseñar el proyecto más por las exportaciones e importaciones de Nicaragua, en vez de ser un proyecto interoceánico, de hacer un proyecto más, una escala mucho más modesto.
So we finally made it to the Caribbean, and in much better shape than Calero and Machuca 5 centuries ago. No one is jealous of our accomplishment, and we have all arrived in fine health and the boat intact. After living together for 30 days in this small boat, I came to the conclusion that the patience and tolerance amongst us was much more challenging than the big waves, storms, rapids, or stiff winds we had to face on our way. Somehow, we made it. It took us 1 month to sail from Granada down the river and up again. I don't know if anyone else has done it before us. If they have, they will never forget it.
Ya en el castillo, cuando arribamos, empezamos a ver de qué forma bajamos. Y nos encontramos con un chino jodido que nos quiso dar la vuelta